Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now.
Howdy, howdy. Here we are live on a Tuesday night. Good to see everybody. Looks like we've already got a few of you regular folks already joining us. Hey to Gary and Bob and John. Good to see all you guys. Wanted to start out tonight's show with an interesting story. Let's see. Let's share here. Okay. This story looks like it's coming from San Antonio, Texas. And it starts out, it's a dangerous situation. Why stealing an air conditioner is more serious than you'd think. Intentionally cutting a refrigerant line is violating federal law and regulated by the EPA, punishable by a hefty fine and jail time. And here's actually a video of a couple guys that were stealing a unit. In less than a minute, two men cut a refrigerant line, stole an air conditioning unit, and drove away. This happened in Greater Harmony Hills neighborhood in the north side. We learned as much. This is much more serious than such a petty crime. Intentionally cutting refrigerant line is violating federal law regulated by the EPA. Releasing the refrigerant chemicals is harmful to our environment. Cutting the line, experts say, could also ruin the air conditioning unit itself because it lets moisture in. Just want to make sure it's... Let me know if you guys are not hearing me, but it looks like nobody's complained yet. So looks like you guys can hear me. So yeah, interesting story here. This quote, "This was probably the most brazen that I've seen," unquote, said William Weatherly about the Greater Harmony Hills theft. Weatherly is the chief inspector for the state of Texas for air conditioning and refrigeration. It's a dangerous situation because you're cutting high voltage line. Yeah, I would actually say that for the people involved, that's probably more dangerous than cutting the refrigerant line. Although that's still pretty dangerous. I've seen people get third-degree burns from the refrigerant, and of course you're releasing that in the atmosphere. It says they don't know how to shut the power off. It's the older refrigerant that we used to have, and a lot of homes still have, an R22, and it's ozone depleting chemical. There can be fines up to $27,500 an incident, or up to 5 years in jail. On top of this being a blatant crime and EPA violation, Weatherly says that the state legislature is making it tougher to resell the metals and copper inside. That's usually why they steal them. They'll break the unit down and get money for the metal. That's been a big crime that has really blown up in the last few years, he explained. Weatherly says if you go to a scrapyard or recycler now, you must have proper identification and documentation for the AC unit. You must present false. If you present false documents, that's a classic misdemeanor. Probably supposed to say class misdemeanor. We asked the experts how you can protect your AC unit. You can put a lock here, pointing to the disconnect box. If you don't put a lock, it's easy. you disconnect this, cut the wires, and not get shocked. They know that. But if you can't pull the disconnect, if they don't have access to it, they probably don't want to steal it because it's going to shock them. You can also anchor down the unit to a concrete slab using screws you can find at any home improvement store. And on and on and on. Having security cameras, a geotag, and motion sensor lights can protect your property. That's true. You could put one of those air tags that Apple has. You know, that'd be funny. You'd go find your heat pump. By the way, you could get paid to turn people in if you are intentionally cutting refrigerant lines. The reward is up to $10,000. So yeah, interesting story. This is not uncommon, but it was just a story that I came across and I thought was interesting. They had the guys on tape, and I just thought that was pretty crazy. So let me know what your thoughts are. Have you ever had this happen, or is this a concern where you live? Or have you ever stolen someone's heat pump before? Let us know in the comments. Let's see. Getting back to our chat here. Looks like a few more folks have joined us. Good to see everybody. Bob says, hello, everybody. I'm kind of early. We have been waiting for rain for 30 days. Finally just started to pour down. Hope it lasts at least a few hours. Here in Virginia, we have been hit with several storms. We had a hurricane / tropical storm, tropical depression, whatever it is, whatever it was classified as. I know there were other folks that got it way worse than we did, but yeah, this past week we've gotten a lot of rain. John says, what procedures do you feel are mandatory on any new heat pump commissioning? Certainly static pressures, weighing in charge, and checking cam at each register. Duct leakage. Yeah, we've got kind of a general list that we have for startups when we install systems. I think in general, you want to, obviously with my guys, we'll go through the entire system and well, here's one thing we do is, or at least I do when I'm on the job sites. And what I'll do is I'll finish the installation and I'll get back to the truck. It's time to go. Been a long day, and all that good stuff. And, we take a deep breath, right? And let's go walk the job one last time. Let's go make sure we're not leaving any trash. Let's make sure the system's running well. Check our delta T, check our airflows, check our refrigerant levels. Just make sure everything is on the up and up before we leave that job site. But yeah, I mean, you've got all the big ones there, John. Other than refrigerant levels, that's probably one that you want to make sure is obviously good. So yeah, Ryan says, hey, Josh. Hey to Ryan. Emery, how do you test the capacitor? Most decent voltmeters will have a capacitance. I think that's the verbiage. And it's just where you just flip your meter to that, and you can just test the capacitor that way. There's other ways too. You can test them while they're running, but that's the easiest way and probably least dangerous way for a homeowner to test them. Let's see. Chad, welcome to the show, says, I'm coming in loud and clear. I was watching back last week's episode and realized I was a little close to the microphone, and if I do that, guys, just tell me to push that thing away from my fat face if it's too loud. So I just noticed that about last week's shows. It's a little too much. I was a little too close to the microphone, so hopefully this sounds a little better for you guys. Let's see. John, darn spell check. Wow, I never know that was illegal. Yeah, stealing someone's air conditioner is illegal, and then releasing the refrigerant into the atmosphere is definitely illegal. Ryan says, what do you think of HVAC service contracts? Scam to find a way to get people to buy new equipment, or do they add true value? I'm always afraid someone will compromise my unit to force a sale. It's definitely a legitimate concern, Ryan. I think that, I think that there's a couple ways to look at it. I can tell you that any good heating and air company is going to offer some sort of maintenance program. We offer one at Griffin Air. And one of my pet peeves, it's nothing I came up with. It's something I learned from the guy that I learned under. And that is, you know, his biggest pet peeve and, you know, was always these companies that would do checkups, you know, and they would just come to your house and kick the tires and they'd be gone in about 10 minutes. And then they charge you the $59 fee and try to sell you something and they're on their way. Right. And so it was always his belief and is now my belief that, you know, having proper maintenance done to that system is a good thing. You know, making that system as new as possible. If bare minimum, cleaning the coils, right? Treating those drains, putting some drain tabs in there and the drain pan and drains themselves, trying to inhibit any, you know, build up algae growth, life, things like that can start to eventually make a drain back up. Same goes for condensate pumps. Looking that system over, having the heat exchanger checked is another big one. I don't think that's done far near enough by homeowners, having that done periodically. And if you don't have it done periodically, you know, if you have a gas burning appliance, then I would at least bare minimum hope that you have a carbon monoxide detector in your home, bare minimum, you know. So I'll say that if they're done correctly, if you have someone that is actually trying to do their best to look out for the homeowner and do a proper tune up and make that system new again and run as efficient as possible again. I have heard the argument that connecting gauges every time will release a little bit of refrigerant every time. And I think that's a valid argument. I think especially if you have an inverter system, that most communicating inverter systems, they're going to tell you if there's a problem. You don't need to be connecting gauges. I think that'll become a thing of the past. The system itself will tell you if something is wrong or if it's low on refrigerant. But all in all, just doing a proper maintenance to that system and making it new again and as efficient as possible is I would think a good thing. So I think that as long as the company's good and they're doing right by you, then it's a good thing. When talking with homeowners on repair costs for their system, is there a percentage numbers where you say the repair is X% of a new system cost? Makes no sense to spend this kind of money on a repair. I think $1,000. I think if it's under $1,000 and the system's not that old, it's usually a no-brainer. You know, that customer could probably spend the $500, $700, whatever it is. And you know, nobody's a psychic. You know, you could get another 5 years, 10 years out of that system. Maybe. I mean, who knows? Right. But if you start getting over $1,000, I see some guys, you know, their system, it'll be over. The warranty's over. It's now been 12, 14, 15 years. And you found a refrigerant leak in the coil, and just to add the refrigerant alone, and then you add in the labor and the part and everything, and you start looking at thousands, plural, thousands of dollars. Then maybe, you know, I don't know what that number is for every homeowner. It's different. There does become a point where I do think that it's not a sales tactic. I think that there's something to be said for, hey, you're about to put all this money into a system and something else might fail within a year. You know, there's value in those warranties, right? Having a system that's still under warranty. So I don't really have a number for that. I think shape of the system might also play a role in that. If you have a system that something's failed and you say to the homeowner, hey, you know, obviously I can't guarantee anything, but it's not in that bad a shape. You've got an older system, but you've had it taken care of, and it's not in that bad a shape. You know, you might be able to get some more life out of this thing, you know? Tech Junkie, welcome to the show. I got really question. If I wanted to turn a house into a seasonal home or a vacant home, what should I do with the hot water heater? It's electric, and what temperature to set it at for winter? That's an interesting question. I don't know if it's come out yet. I think it did. We just did a water heater video that just came out. And maybe that's what prompted you to ask this question, Tech Junkie. But I have actually, where I live, a lot of customers of ours have second homes, Airbnbs. I live near the water, so we have a lot of customers that'll, maybe they'll retire to here. I have one customer that has a guest house that's an Airbnb. And then, and then we just have folks that will have seasonal homes like you're describing. And for me, if it was my home and I wasn't there, if it's seasonal and I'm not going to be there, I drain it. I would drain it. I would put tape over the breaker and kill the breaker and then drain it. Because obviously if there's no water in it and it's got power going to it, you'll burn up the elements. But I would turn off the power, put a piece of tape over it, maybe even write on the piece of tape, water tank needs, water heater needs to be filled before this is turned on. And then I would drain it. And, there is something to be said for stagnant water that's been sitting in that tank for months on end. And then you get back and you try to turn everything on and take a shower, right? So I wouldn't set a temperature. That's what I would do. I would drain it if I'm not going to be there. Other than that, a lot of water heaters do have something called a vacation mode, and they will not heat the water as high, if at all. I'm not sure exactly. I think they all probably operate their own way, but they do have a vacation mode there. Chad says they won't get that far where I live. Sheriff is my neighbor. That would be actually kind of funny. They're out there thinking they're getting away with something, and Mr. Neighbor's the sheriff. Hey, Gil, welcome to the show. Ryan says, especially with my older system, I have to tell them up front and I'm not looking for a new system. Just PM to keep this one running. Yeah, I mean, I think that if you have a good heat and air guy, they should be expecting that, Sheldon says, what are the most common repairs you have encountered on this Daikin fit? What are the most common ones? I would say the most common one is the Daikin 1 thermostat. We've had some of those fail. Not a lot, but more than one. We had one that there was a leak in the outdoor unit. Just one out of all the ones we've put in. To be honest, Sheldon, we haven't had a lot of issues with them, and that's why I like them, and that's not me blowing smoke. We just genuinely haven't. My guys will tell you that. The few issues that we've had, it's usually been something that, we needed to get straight, and then the customer became a stranger again. But we just haven't had, I think the first one we ever put in, it's a few years old now. We put one in as soon as the heat pump models came out, and I don't think I've ever heard from that guy. I don't even think he's having the system maintained very well, because I don't think we've heard from him. Let's see. Emery says, what is the penalty for illegally releasing refrigerant into the atmosphere? According to that article, and I think it's true. I think it's a felony. I think it's a federal offense. But I don't really know the exact ins and outs. According to that article, you could get $10,000 fine and up to 5 years in jail, according to that article. Chad says, can I put yard fabric over my heat exchanger for a filter? I wouldn't. I don't know exactly what. I wouldn't do anything that wasn't meant to do what it's supposed to do. I would put a regular filter in there before I did something with yard fabric. You just don't know the static pressures, and it's not meant for that anyway. So I wouldn't do anything like that, pal. Sheldon says, do you think the drain tabs have any corrosive effect on the coil? I wouldn't think so, but even if they did, they're not, most of them, if you do it correctly, they shouldn't come in contact with the coil. Larry says, we have a carbon monoxide detector on each of the 3 levels of our house. Of course you do, Larry. You do everything tip top. John says, do you like Mueller Streamline for line sets? If not, what is your preference? I don't have a preference, John. Maybe I should. We just order line sets from our supplier, and whatever they have is honestly what we use. Tech Junkie says, my grandma passed away. Sorry to hear that, pal. For now, I have her home. It's out in the country. It was built by my grandfather and her. So it's been in the family for 60 plus years. Land is 100 plus. Yeah, man. Well, do what you can to keep that in the family then, you know. I don't think it's uncommon for a lot of folks to come up with short-term rentals and things like that, ways of being able to keep property like that in the family. I think that's part of the reason there's such a housing crisis right now. We have folks hanging on to stuff like that when in reality they would have, you know, sold it to the next homeowner these days. But yeah, Eric says, got my new GE heat pump dual fuel installed today. I don't have a return grill yet. Does adding a return grill cause the airflow noise to be quieter? I mean, if there's not a return grill, are you saying that there's just an open hole there and you're having unfiltered air be pulled across your coil? I don't think adding the return grill would necessarily change. If anything, it would make it louder because it's going to add a little bit of static. But if everything is sized properly, it probably, you know, wouldn't even be noticeable. Mike says, when will Daikin come out with their new equipment? Well, they just released, I think officially Daikin just released the side discharge units for, the Goodman and Amana products. So I know that just came out recently, and I know they've got a few other things coming in the next couple months. But I don't want to speak out of turn on that. You know, I'm sure there's always many variables. There's times when you shoot for October and then it might end up being November, right? But I do know that there's a couple things that I'm excited about that they're supposedly waiting until the refrigerant changes of next year. You know, the end of next year, we should start seeing some of their R32 stuff come out, which they've already came out with one, but, supposedly we're going to see some new stuff come out with that. And I'm really excited about that. I'm not allowed to say some of the things, I don't think, but I don't know that I really know everything anyway. Right. But if you watch the video we did the original video I did where I toured Daikin, I interviewed a lady named Connie, and there's a part in that video where I think I'm like, she kind of winks like there's some things coming, which is kind of cool. So yeah. Or I think I was like, wink, and she's like, yeah, but I can't really say, you know, so anyway, I had a good time on that trip. It was a lot of fun and got to see a lot of cool stuff. Emery says, how to test ducts for leakage. The most common way, Emery, for that is to do what's called a duct blast test. And, Joey the Dime just gave us a tip. Thanks, Joey. I'm in Florida and I took your advice, replaced the 12-year-old Lennox XC21 with a 4-ton Daikin fit about 45 days ago. I was averaging $5.17 a day of electric usage with the Lennox, now of $4.70 a day with the fit. Thank you. Awesome, man. That's great. Great to hear. I'm going to do a little screenshot because I know the folks over at Daikin, they like seeing, you know, great success stories like that. I am curious what part of Florida you're in. One of my buddies that he's actually with Daikin, lives in Florida. So I'm just curious where you're located, but that's really cool. I wonder if the XC21, is that their 20 SEER unit, and you went to a Daikin fit, which would actually be a lower SEER and saved money. That is really cool. So anyway, back to your question, Emery. You said how to test ducts for leakage. Like I say, the most common way usually is to do a duct blast test, and that's something they've got this machine, and they can actually put the system under a pressure and see what the leakage actually is. There's a couple other ways too, but I'm not going to get into those. In fact, we might be doing a video soon with a potential sponsor where we're going to talk about a very unconventional ways of sealing your ducts without having to get physically in the crawl space and things like that, but more to come on that. Emery also says, we had a carbon monoxide detector installed when our new system was installed. Is it code where you are to have that with new installs? I'll be honest, I have no idea. I'm just a stickler about it. There is a such thing. I just listened to a podcast the other day of something called carbon monoxide spillage and backdraft, where some carbon monoxide detectors, if it's just a little bit, may not even detect it, which is kind of scary. But I think that that's usually when the levels are so low that it's not really going to necessarily kill you anyway. It just might make you sick of breathing it all the time. But at bare minimum, I mean, if I had a gas burning appliance in my home, I wouldn't go to sleep tonight without having a carbon monoxide detector. I think they're a big deal, and you should too. It's odorless. You're not going to smell it. And it's a silent killer, man. Just if you don't believe me, if any of you think I'm doing a sales, if this is a sales tactic, just Google it. Google carbon monoxide poisoning kills homeowner, and you'll see so many horrible stories out there. So many heartbreaking stories. Sheldon says, new copper tubings are more flimsy. Are we expecting more leaks from them? I mean, I'm not expecting them, but, I think just in general, you're seeing, from over the last 2-3 decades, companies try to produce the best equipment they can with the least amount of raw materials, right? To have the smallest carbon footprint, if you will, but still be able to, keep everything intact. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they're flimsy, or at least most of them. I mean, I suppose there are some that are better than others, but yeah, that's all I have on that. Ryan says, Goodman finally has their Daikin Fit equivalent units on their website now and offer a labor warranty called Assure Extended Service Plan. Does Daikin have a similar program? Yeah, Daikin, Amana, all of them have the Assure program. And that, honestly, that's not new. That's been there for a long time. I think they had that, and I could be wrong on this, but I think they had that before Daikin bought Goodman. I think the Assure program was something that, at least Amana, I have a customer that had an Amana that was quite old, and, it had that Assure, warranty, extended labor warranty, for you guys that are wondering what that is. Eric says, filter is at air handler. It is just a hole in the wall with no grill currently. I would stick something over that, filter over that for now, Eric. Just at least try to filter that air. It's your brand new system, and, just do your best to filter that air as it goes through there. So let's see. Joey says, I'm in Punta Gorda, Florida, close to Fort Myers. Yes, the Lennox was a 20-seer. Wow, man, that is so crazy. And I appreciate you saying that. And by the way, I would trade you in a second where you live. We're actually going to go to Florida next week. We're going to be getting on a cruise ship, and that's why I won't be here for our show next week. For any of you that are that don't know or care, so I know some of you guys join us every week. Just realize we will not be here next week. I'll be out in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. Mike says, I think my Bryant will hold out until the Daikin Fit comes out with R32. I'm in Tampa and ready to go when it comes out. I'm sold on Daikin with a heat pump now. That's awesome, man. Tampa's a nice area too. I have some friends there, and I think if I didn't have family, then I would definitely move to Florida. That's just me, Some people say it's too hot down there. I don't think so. It's too cold everywhere else. Let's see. Tech Junkie says, I bought a personal carbon monoxide detector. Anything over 0 ppm of carbon monoxide is bad. Above 9 will make you sick. Chad says, I know I have a few duct leaks. I'm definitely staying glued if I can seal them without having to go under there. I needed to know that. Yeah, duct blast test is something that it's not that costly. I think some companies, I mean, I haven't had to do one in a while. We don't do a lot of new construction, but most of the guys that do it, I mean, they'll do one for at least before all this craziness in the last few years with all the inflation. You used to be able to get one for a few $100. I mean, I think, I don't remember it being like super pricey, like, I don't know, less than $500 if I remember correctly. Maybe $600. I don't know. Now I'm questioning myself. Maybe it was like $500 or $600, but it wasn't like so outrageously bad that, that it would scare you away. But it's still $500 just to test your ductwork. Unfortunately, with a lot of new construction, some localities are requiring them, when you do your mechanical permit, they're requiring duct blast tests for new construction, which is not a bad thing, but it's just another expense though. So yeah, let's break away. Every week we do a little segment here on our show. Tonight's, oh, my computer is acting goofy here. And so tonight's question for you. Tonight's question for you is, what has helped you the most when buying HVAC? What has helped you the most when buying HVAC? And that could be, where have you gotten the best advice? Where have you, or it could also be, what hardware, did you get a specific thermostat and that's what helped you the most? Maybe a particular contractor, specifically helped you the most. I'd love to hear about that. Please comment in our chat section. What has helped you the most when buying HVAC? Let's see. Back to our comments. Emery says, furnaces can contribute to carbon monoxide poisoning if the heat exchanger is cracked. Very true. There's also something called backdraft. There's a number of things that can cause carbon monoxide to come back in the home, in addition to a cracked heat exchanger. So you can have a heat exchanger that is perfectly fine, but if there is issues with the flue, the intake, even oversizing them can cause spilling is the proper term of carbon monoxide into your home. Not leaking, spilling, as I've learned recently. Bob says most local fire departments have pretty good carbon monoxide detectors. When in doubt, give them a call. Yeah, that's something that I also talked about in a recent video. I don't know that it's come out yet, but it's something that we talk about. And, so that's something we'll probably touch on in that video that when it comes out. But, I tread lightly with that. I don't want folks to just be calling fire departments, left and right every time they have a concern. But I also don't want someone to feel like they can't call the fire department and they actually do have a safety issue. So if you do feel like there's something wrong, that is a option. That's an option for you. Craig says, does your local jurisdiction allow emergency pan to be routed to the outside area, installing only emergency cutoff switches? Emergency pan not to be routed. Sorry, I misread that the first time. So do they allow it to not be routed? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I think as long as that drain pan, because sometimes that's easier said than done, right? That drain pan, depending on where that unit's located, but you do need to have some sort of cutoff if there were to be an issue in that drain pan. And I can't remember an inspector giving us a super hard time about that. But I will say, again, I'll admit, we don't do a lot of new construction at our company. So there are times when things change and we might be the last ones to know because we just simply, we're not doing it every day. We're not doing a lot of new construction. We fix them and we will replace them. We do a little bit of new construction, but not a lot. And we're usually the guys that they call when stuff ain't right, when things were installed and it's just not working right or running right. And we're the ones that have to come behind them and break the bad news, the ductwork's not sized right, or this wasn't installed right. And that's kind of what we kind of specialize in. Emery says, what has helped me was my contractor. Very cool. So Emery, feel free to give your contractor a shout out, where they're located and who they are. I'm sure you probably have before. I know that's something we do from time to time. But that's good to hear. Chad says the light bulb that kills the black growth. Yes. Yeah. UV lights. I did a whole spiel about that a few weeks ago on our show about how I thought they were snake oil until I actually saw one of them do what they do, and saw the black growth. I don't want to say it disappeared, but we went back and that coil was shiny as a nickel. You know, it was just crazy. Tech Junkie says, I spent about 4 years of doing research into HVAC units for my house and prepping my house for a lower size unit. I ended up making duct changes and doing a mini split in the basement, savings of about $30 to $50 a month. Wow. Yeah. You no longer have that duct leakage. You have a ductless. Mike says, your expert advice and videos sold me on Daikin. You rock. I have fun on your cruise. We have one in November and one in December. Wow. So you're a cruiser. That is one thing I'm jealous about you, Florida folks. There's a guy that I follow on YouTube, believe it or not, that he lives in Florida and they go on cruises all the time. And, you know, for a lot of those guys, they can, or you guys that live in Florida, you guys can, you know, get off of work on a Friday and kind of, you know, be like, oh, there's a great deal. You know, they have an open room and we can do a quick weekend trip. It almost kind of reminds me of, I used to work at a company that the guys would get off on Friday. They'd get off early, jump on an airplane, fly all the way to Vegas, spend Friday night, Saturday nights, fly back on Sunday and be back to work on Monday morning, which is just crazy. And that's probably how it is for you folks that live in Florida when it comes to cruising. You can just kind of go on one whenever you want, if there's a spot available, right? Craig says the internet, YouTube, and this channel is what guided me to our 2 new 3-ton heat pump fit systems. Very cool. Roberto says, hello, welcome to the show, Roberto. Ram says, I have a new system, but I'm not saving any money on electricity. Maybe it's the thermostat which shows a higher temperature than the setting. I would be concerned, especially if you did get a more efficient system and you should be seeing some savings and you're not. I would ask your contractor to just kind of look everything over. There is a possibility that something's just simply wrong. A setting, maybe your refrigerant, the Delta T is just not quite as good as it should be when it comes to the temperature going in your return and coming out the vents. Maybe they can get a few things straight for you and save you some energy there. And sometimes, you know, a lot of folks will say, well, you know, we're only talking $10 a month here. Yeah, but $10 after a whole year, that's $120. And then after 10 years, we're looking at thousands. So even $10 a month adds up, you know. Ryan says, YouTube helps the most. Feel like I know more about products contractors offer than they do sometimes. I remember asking a company about the difference between the VRV and fit, and he just looked at me. Well, if he wasn't a Daikin dealer, he may not have even known what you were talking about. Daikin is the only company that has those two terms. In fact, a lot of other companies, because Daikin invented the VRV technology and then patented that, they're the only ones that call it VRV. Most of the other brands call it VRF. Same stuff, same technologies, you know, now. And then, of course, the fit is something that is proprietary to Daikin as well. Brian, welcome to the show, says hello and good evening. Brian from Central Valley in California. Thank you for all you do. And your information is very helpful and greatly appreciated. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate the kind words. If you are just joining us, feel free to drop a question in the chat, heating and air related, and I'll try to answer it. We've got a few other pros in here as well, and we will try to answer your questions. But, you know, I don't know everything. So hopefully one of those guys will know the answer. If you don't, if you stump me, maybe they'll know the answer. Ryan says he was a Daikin dealer and had the logo on his hat and sleeve. Well, he should have known what a fit was. If he's a Daikin dealer and he doesn't know what the fit is, he must be new. Because I can tell you, I get emails from Daikin periodically. They send out marketing materials. They send out they're very good at communication compared to a lot of other brands that I have sold in the past. And, they'll send out and say, hey, here's our rebates for the customers this quarter. And it's everywhere. You go, I bet if let's try it. I don't even know. I always get in trouble when I do this stuff because I don't actually know what I'm going to run into, but let's just go to their website real quick, daikincomfort.com. And I bet the fit is going to be popping up here. Really, boom. It's the very first thing that pops up, except the cookies. The fit is the very first thing that popped up. So, I would say that if he is selling the fit and he's a Daikin dealer, if I would say if he's a Daikin dealer and he doesn't know what the fit is, then he's probably new. He's still learning what Daikin's all about, I guess. So yeah. Again, if you're just joining us, feel free to drop a question in the chat and we will try to answer that for you. Let's move on to our next segment. We'll get back to the chat in just a moment. Feel free to drop your questions in there. Our next segment is one of the fan favorites. Some of you guys get a kick out of some of these. And so here's tonight, Goofy Inventions. Tonight's Goofy Inventions is some of you guys have said in the past, for those of you that have never seen my show before, we do a Goofy Invention from time to time. Some of them have been so good that people have patented them from the show. And they said, wow, that's such a great idea. And they went and patented it and recreated my invention and became millionaires. Of course, I'm kidding. But it's possible, right? And tonight's Goofy Invention is, we've all had those folks in our home that, you just want to smack their fingers when they touch the thermostat, right? Don't be touching my thermostat. I think it's every dad in America, fights this battle of the rest of the family messing with his thermostat. And so tonight, our Goofy Invention is thermostats that can be locked out and can only be unlocked with fingerprint or the face recognition technologies, just like, the iPhone has today. And so, this might be a good invention for some of you guys. If you do have a home where you're constantly, having to mess with the thermostat, you got somebody else in the home that's constantly messing with it. You got to put your thumbprint on there to get that thermostat to do what it needs, to have that temperature changed. And so that's tonight's Goofy Invention. Let me know what you think. Is that something that you would like to have? A thermostat that, like my phone here, if it has the facial recognition technology on this is a 13. And what if your thermostat had that? What if it knows who's trying to change that temperature, and you can lock it out? Let me know what you think about that in the chat. Ryan says he couldn't explain the difference between the two products. I wanted to zone my system or get the VRV Life and have two furnaces instead of zoning. Ryan, based on some of your questions in the past, you're one of the smarter guys I have on the show. Did you ever get those questions answered? I would, if not, we can go ahead and talk about it now. Bruce says the thermostat, Josh, I love it, but my wife would kill me. Well, maybe your wife might lock it out and make her face the lockout, and then she'll have control, the ultimate control of the thermostat. Ryan says I'm frugal, so this would be great, but good luck not allowing others to have access. Yeah, that's the whole point, man. They would have to have your thumbprint. Maybe, have you ever seen those movies where they chop their finger off and then now they have their thumbprint? You know, you go lock in the thermostat and now your thumbs are at risk because your wife might come through and just chop it off and use that to unlock the thermostat. All you guys, your fingers are at risk all of a sudden of being chopped off because of this technology of thermostats having to be, unlocked. I didn't get as many comments on that as I thought I would. Somebody must be patenting it. I can't say that word tonight. Patenting that tonight. Someone's going to patent it and go become a millionaire, I will say that this idea is probably less goofy compared to some of the other goofy inventions. Some of the other goofy inventions that we have come up with in the past. Some of you have gotten quite a kick out of some of these inventions, but not many comments on this one tonight. Maybe you guys, maybe the gears are turning and you actually do think this is a good one for once. I don't know. I still like some of the invention where I talked about the geothermal units, where you can actually, when the foundation is dug for the foundation of the home, go ahead and drop your loops then, right? I don't know. We've come up with some pretty goofy ones. I think we talked about one with thermostats that have personalities, like the ones that, the old TomTom GPSs, and you could download, like, I remember I had a friend that had the Austin Powers one. But yeah. Arch, good to see you. Welcome to the show. The Chinese are reverse engineering your invention as you speak. Yes, they can have it. They can have my invention, and they're going to come up with something to lock everyone out. It's all a conspiracy, and Big Brother is gonna keep us out of our thermostats because you won't have the thumbprint to get in there. Roberto says better, smart, and controlled over your phone. Yeah, I mean they have thermostats now that can be locked, but usually there's a code. You got to punch in the code to get it unlocked. But I was just reading some comments from a lady the other day where she was talking about how she had an Airbnb and she wants to lock it out, but then be able to control it over her phone, and then she has to unlock it and all this stuff. Yeah, Gary says the Mitsubishi MHK2 for my split system needs a password to alter any parameters, including temperature adjustment if one wishes. And the password is password. Mike says a slight shock, which you could control with your smartphone. Mike, not only that, if they go to put their thumbprint on it and it's not the right one, then they get shocked. How about that? And then they get a code, or a voice yells at them that says, "Don't touch my thermostat." Ryan says, I have an issue where two people living in the house like different temperatures. I wanted to run cooling longer, but hear bad reviews on zoning and thought I'd be better to have a separate air handler. Yeah, I mean, the thing about the VRV Life, I mean, obviously you can do ducted units, you can do ductless, and that's really the appeal, right? So that's why a lot of folks would even consider ductless in general, where they could have each zone could have its own temperature. Adrian says, what's going on here? Adrian, you got to talk about this in your next show. I have my Goofy Inventions segment. I have my Goofy Invention segment every show, and tonight's Goofy Invention was having thermostats with facial recognition or thumbprint technology like an iPhone would. So that's my Goofy Invention. Someone, maybe you'll patent it and become a millionaire. Somebody sewed sleeves on a blanket years ago and called it a Snuggie, and became a millionaire. So by gosh, if I keep throwing these goofy inventions out every week, we're going to come up with something. Somebody's going to get rich here, right? Ryan says, maybe just get a mini split for my room is cheaper than a better solution. It'd probably dehumidify better too, Ryan. Having just that 1-to-1 and having it be able to pull that moisture out of the air. I don't know where you live, but if humidity is an issue, 1-to-1s in general are almost always going to dehumidify better than a multi-zone unit. Just as a general rule, that's usually the case. TJ says, my cousin has a 2,100 square foot home. The previous 4-ton unit didn't cool well enough in the hot, humid summer months of Louisiana. He replaced it with a 5-ton unit, which I thought might be oversized, need oversized, but it cools much better, and his electric bill has been reduced by $150 a month. Wow, hey, there's a success story if I've ever heard one. Tech Junkie says, I like mini splits. I hate they have the temp detection on the unit itself. That's one thing that I have been wondering, and this obviously, this doesn't include the VRV or VRF stuff, but these mini splits, they've got the communicating technology to a degree, but they're not communicating with the remote. So it's just that indoor and outdoor unit that's communicating. And so, I wonder, as we see these units continue to come out that are non-communicating inverter systems that are typical split systems, right? If that's part of this too. I mean, maybe one of them, maybe the Griflex is that way and I just don't know it. But having these systems where they have the ability to still have communicating technology between the indoor and outdoor units, despite the fact that a regular thermostat is controlling them. So hopefully I'm not getting too technical with some of you guys, but that kind of gets back to what you're talking about with mini splits. It doesn't go by the temperature on the remote. It goes by the temperature on the unit itself. Ryan says, how high should a mini split head be on the wall? Is there a limit? I would say in general for comfort, depending on the room, if it's a wall hung, I want it almost as high as I possibly can and still have enough clearance around the unit. Only simply because heat rises, so you want to get that unit up high. Wall mount units are meant to be up high and blow down. Floor mount units are meant to be down and blow high, just so you have that circulation, if you will, of the unit. Look at that. I'm just doing all my hand motions tonight for you guys. It's been a crazy night so far. All my goofy inventions, and it's just been a weird night so far. Gary says, too funny, Josh. Actually, the password is the code number of the thermostat back panel plus the current year. There you go. Yeah, so if I'm ever at your house, Gary, I know how to get in there now. Now I know the password. Ryan says, just curious why we don't have high efficiency 90% gas packs. It's a good question. I've actually often wondered that as well. And maybe they do, and you and I just aren't aware of it, Ryan. But, obviously they've got to consider the drain. They've got to consider the acidity of the condensation. They've got to consider, the technology itself. Maybe that's part of this. I think there is something to be said for a package unit, especially in comparison to a split system. The air handler part of that system is sitting out in the elements. So if you get a super, super cold day, maybe that's part of this. You've got a furnace that's just simply the heat rise is not high enough. It's too efficient, But I've often wondered that as well. It's not even an option with most of the brands that we sell. Tech Junkie says it's because a gas pack is outside and the duct outside is freezing and they are already very inefficient. That's very true too. I'm not a fan. I think it's odd how there are certain parts of the country. I know Arch, you're in one of them, where package units are the norm. They're more the norm than anything else. Because they are literally sitting out in the elements, Emery says, are heat pumps or natural gas furnaces more common in your area? In my area, I would say in general, heat pumps are more common. Even the customers that have gas furnaces in my area have dual fuel Usually, not always, but usually. Now we do have some customers that live in the cities and they have natural gas, and they might have a typical 1-to-1. Ryan says Nortec makes one. That's the one manufacturer I've seen. No comment, Ryan. No comment on that. Gary says Tech, probably talking to Tech Junkie, the MHK2 is an independent thermostat for the Mitsubishi mini splits. You bypass the internal sensor completely. So yeah, we're going to be wrapping up our show soon, guys. If you got any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. We've got a good little crowd here tonight in comparison to some nights, so that's good. But feel free to drop any comments or questions in there. The last segment that we do every episode is if you do know any good heating and air companies out there, depending on where they're located in the country, feel free to drop their name, good heating and air. Let's show them some love. Any good heating and air contractors, companies, technicians out there, feel free to drop their name in our chat. Let's give them some love and where they're located. Maybe you might be able to show them so much love that someone else on here lives close enough to you that they know to call a good company when they see one. So feel free to drop that in the chat. If you know any good heating and air companies, their name and where they're located. Arch says many newer homes have split systems, but in the older homes, package units seem to be the norm. Yeah, they not only are they the norm, they're all on the roof out where you live, which is very unique. I don't think there's any other part of the country. I'm not saying that they're not there. There are other parts of the country that is still a thing, but they're not the norm as much as it seems to be out there. So I'm sure they have the reason, but here in Virginia, to have to get a crane for each and every residential installation would be quite an interesting task. That I think there'd be a lot more crane companies around here if that were the case. Tech Junkie says, I need one for the Daikin 17 SEER mini split. Crazy. Well, if you guys, again, if you have any questions or any companies you want to show love for, make sure you get that in there. We will be wrapping up tonight. We will not be here next week. So it's going to be a couple weeks before you see me again. And then it's going to be a weird October. So not only am I not going to be here next week, but I'll be gone next week. The week after that, I'll be here. I'll be here in our studio. And then the week after that, I'll be back in Houston again. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do a show that week either because of everything that I'll have going on when I'm down there. So it's going to be a weird October. Don't lose faith. If you don't see me one week, rest assured. And if you do lose track of, if you're one of the folks that join us every week, which I'd greatly appreciate, and you don't see our show that Tuesday night, just look on the community section of the YouTube, and I'm going to try to keep that up to date too. So if you're like, is this the week that I'm not, Josh isn't here, then, just look there and it'll be posted, and I usually try to do a good job of letting you guys know, when we're going to be going live that night. So, but anyway, Arch says if we could ever convert a linen closet to a fit, no pun intended, I'd consider one. Maybe you can, Arch. Have you had anybody look at converting or what's the word? Not converting, refabricating the ductwork for you to be able to do so. I would say getting that unit in the house, you're going to save a ton of money getting that unit out of that desert heat, sitting up on that roof and getting baked in the sun. Just getting that air handler inside would probably help you out a ton. Gary says, have a good evening, Josh. Look forward to the next show in a couple weeks. Have a great time. Thanks, Gary. Electra Jim, or I'm just going to call you Jim. Shout out to Chesterfield Service. So shout out to those guys and congratulations from the Troy Chamber of Commerce ribbon cutting ceremony. Let's look at these guys up. We have a Chesterfield where I live, but I've never heard of Troy. Chesterfield, HVAC, Troy. Chamber of Commerce. Show you guys what I'm looking at. Let's see. Ribbon cutting ceremony. Oh, come on. Bear with me, guys. I just curious what this ribbon cutting ceremony is. Maybe you guys are too. Maybe you're not. I don't know. We'll find out though. Chesterfield Service. Where are they located? In Chesterfield, Missouri. So Jim is showing you guys some love. Let's see if we can find this ribbon cutting ceremony with this company. Search. Here we go.
Those are awesome, man.
I guess they did an open house and ribbon cutting. I don't know if they.
Those are awesome, man.
I don't know if why they did that. Maybe they got a new location. Extending our company into the Troy area brings us a tremendous sense of pride. Okay, so they extended their coverage area and did a ribbon cutting. Very cool. Very, very cool. So yeah, Jim, shout out to Chesterfield Services and Chesterfield, Missouri. Showing those guys some love. Bob says, enjoy your cruise. Thanks, pal. Appreciate that. Ryan says, what cruise line? I like cruising to enjoy your time. We are going on Royal Caribbean. We've done Carnival before. We've never done Royal Caribbean. They've got it's this big ship and they've got a carousel on it. So my 2-year-old daughter is going to love that. So we're excited. Sheldon says, do you think there's a shortage of AC technicians generally? I think all in all, yes. Sheldon. I think there are parts of the country where it's a bigger problem than others. But yeah, I would say in general that the industry, especially as the baby boomers continue to, retire and are no longer in this workforce, it's going to get magnified. Tech Junkie says, no worries. I'm at the beach next week. Then a week later, I'm in Tennessee. Nice, man. You're getting around. Jim says, Chesterfield Service, family owned since 1976. Nice. So again, shout out to those guys. Arch says a lot of flat roofs in Arizona, but there are pitched roofs that have packed units, especially if swamp coolers were replaced. Yeah, I helped a customer in Utah, and she badly wanted to get rid of her swamp cooler, and apparently they're used there a lot. And once we, ran the numbers and figured all these things out, she eventually, I think, went back to using her swamp cooler. TJ says bon voyage. Emery says, do still see units from the 70s. I don't. I had a customer that had a unit from the 70s, but they're no longer our customer. They sold that house, and I don't think we've been there in a while, so I don't know if that unit's still there or not. But we band-aided that unit a couple times for him. We were still able to get parts for it, believe it or not. Bob says about 20,000 new techs are needed every year. I don't know if that's, I don't have any way of I'm going to take Bob at his word. I don't have any way of confirming, that number or anything like that, but I believe it. 20,000 is not that high of a number. So I actually believe that. You figure all the cities across America and all the, the folks that are needing to get into this trade, and also considering the trade, it goes across multiple, you've got residential, commercial, and industrial applications. Arch says no, but might look for a Daikin dealer, see if it's possible and affordable. Nice. Jim still showing Chesterfield service some love. Jeff, welcome to the show. Says, what's your feedback on the flare puck for a Mitsubishi split system? Let's see. Flare puck. I have not laid hands on one of these. I don't know if this is new to me. I'm assuming that this is probably something similar to the D6 that Honeywell used to make. Yes. So it's basically a universal thermostat that can connect remotely to a bunch of different brands, or at least that's what I think I'm looking at. And then there's several other brands that make comparable products. I've never actually laid hands on this one. But essentially they're, if you remember back in the old days, when I say the old days, when I was a kid, if you had your television and you had your cable box and maybe you had some other device, you could buy a universal remote and flip the switch on it and control all these different things. And so that's what I would equate some of these thermostats to, that they're essentially replacing the handheld thermostat with a wall mount remote control. That's essentially what they are. And, you'd make your changes on it and it still shoots a signal to the ductless unit, and that's how they operate. Again, I have not used that particular brand, but I know the Honeywell D6, it had a lot of bad reviews, but we installed them, and as long as you educated the customer on how to use it and what it could and couldn't do, it had to have a clear line of sight to the unit. We had a lot of happy customers with them. So, we rarely had anybody complain about them. Shortage of techs. Most companies want to pay low wages, and I can go make 50 to 60K starting pay for a basic maintenance job that just wants high school education. That's true for certain parts of the country for sure. Ryan showing Anderson Heating and Cooling in Charlotte, North Carolina some love, although I had to call them back to clean out the AC. They said they did. Just leaves, but thorough report and checked static pressure. Okay, so shout out to those guys in Charlotte, North Carolina. Jeff says they apparently serve as smart thermostats. So yeah, they probably have some of the same functionality, maybe even something as crazy as, say, geofencing and things like that, because that wouldn't have anything to do with the operation of the mini split. But if that thermostat had some of those smart capabilities, that's not a problem. But it still will operate like a remote control. But yeah, I appreciate you showing that to me, Jeff. And I like the American flag with your name there. So shout out to America. Sorry to any of you folks that watch this from Canada. Shout out to you too. How about that? But anyway, yeah, it's a good show tonight, guys. We're going to be wrapping up here shortly. Appreciate you guys joining us, especially you guys that join us every week. Again, we will not be here next week, so don't forget about me 2 weeks from now. We still want some strong numbers, and we still want some folks. If you have not subscribed to our channel, we're trying to get to a million. I wish 100,000 subscribers by the end of next year. And I think if we, put out some good videos and continue to have you guys support us, we can definitely do that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I normally say enjoy the week and make it a great week, but I guess we'll say the same for the next 2 weeks. Enjoy the next 2 weeks, make them great, and we'll see you then. Thanks, and have a good night.